Hey, this is Brendon Small from Dethklok, and you're listening to the Brutally Delicious podcast.
One, two, three, four. The Brutally Delicious podcast. The Brutally Delicious podcast. The Brutally Delicious podcast. The Brutally Delicious podcast.
Hey, Brendon, how are you?
I'm good. How you doing?
Good. I haven't talked to you in, I think, probably like 10 years.
It's been a while, huh?
Yeah,
How you doing?
I'm doing well. Good to see you. I'm
Yeah.
glad to see you guys hitting on all cylinders again. It's pretty cool.
Just a lot of stuff coming out with this project. Yeah, it's pretty bonkers.
Had you anticipated all this all at once, or was it coordinated that way, or did it just come about?
Yeah, you know what? It was, you know, it's funny. We came back in 2019 to do a one-off show. We got a call and they said, do you want to do this Adult Swim show? Would you be interested in bringing Dethklok back? And I said, yeah. And I kind of got the feeling that show was going to open the door to talks about kind of completing the show, completing the series with a movie and whatever. I didn't know if it was going to be a movie or what, but I knew that there was something going on there. So I took it very seriously. And I think that 2019 show, landing it in the way that we did, was crucial to the future of the project. So early 2020, I get this offer from the network to make this feature, and not just the feature, DETHALBUM IV, and negotiate inside of that is like a film score record too, and then naturally a tour. So all that stuff is kind of put together, and the question is, it's going to be a good amount of work. I'm looking down the barrel of this and I go, yeah, that's going to be a good chunk of work. And it's a pretty good challenge. The feature particularly is something that I wanted to really take seriously and really treat like a movie and really surround myself with experts and really kind of put the thing together. So I knew that was a real challenge. Writing music is writing music, and you catch as you can and you get lucky, and you just got to put yourself in a position of getting lucky and doing a lot of writing. So one second. So I knew that there's gonna be a lot of work, and I knew that I had to get to work as soon as possible. So just like when I first started with the show, first thing I do is get the guitar out and start playing and start kind of letting it tell me
What's going
to letting Dethklok back in my head and let them start to tell me what's going on, because this is kind of how it's been. I don't feel like I've made a lot of decisions with the show. I feel like Dethklok's always told me what they want to do. I have to kind of just be a vessel for them.
Is there more one particular member that tells you what to do than the others, or?
I think, especially with this project, it was definitely Nathan was the loudest voice in the room, and Nathan had a lot to say, and Nathan had a lot to say lyrically, and to get into his mindset lyrically is a really fun place to be, because we're like a writing team. He's got these moods and these ideas, and I'm the one that has to go get the thesaurus out and like the medical dictionary and all that kind of stuff. So and then it feels like, even though I'm completely alone in this studio for long hours, days, months by myself, just breathing the same air, losing my mind, it really feels like a collaborative between, when Nathan shows up on the song finally, after all these rhythm guitars and drums are done, it really starts to feel like what it needs to feel like. Mutated, yes, because this project goes a little heavier, goes a little harder,
Yes.
It's a little bit more epic and mystical. But that's kind of what Nathan Explosion wanted. I don't know what to tell you.
So is that where this whole thing starts? And I know you said you've got like 3 projects in one, but what's the genesis of it? Just sitting down the guitar and channeling some guitar riffs? Is that how it starts?
I think this project. The way I think of what I do is that I'm a writer who happens to play, or I'm a writer who happens to act. But it's the writing that has to come first, and the general concept of the world. And I knew what the story was going to be. I knew how it had to end. I knew how it had to begin, and I knew I knew I had a lot of particular notions that needed to be the way that I would put it is that we owed a lot to certain things in this project to tie up or to land, conceptually from episode 1 and episode 2, which I think are like the two kind of, they're almost like two different pilots. One of them takes place underwater, and one of them kind of establishes the band, the world, and the tribunal.
Right.
So, and the concept, which is like episode 1 is Dethklok. They go, they play this one show. They're going to play one song. It's a coffee jingle. What happens is their 6-star chef gets exploded. And this show's about these 5 idiots, these 5 children in man costumes are going to be big boys and make their own dinner. And that's what the first episode's about. And that's also the question of this whole show. Can they become big boys? These lost boys, can they grow up at some point? And they're trying to do things on their own, even though they're grown-ups, but they're celebrities. So it's not their job to do anything. So this is a show about celebrities and that happens to takes place in this world where metal rules over everything.
But they're also super identifiable characters, right? I mean, as growing up as a metalhead, those guys, Swiss Guard, all those guys are super identifiable. And I'm sure you hear that from everybody.
Yeah, everyone seems to find somebody in them. And, to us, they were like, minus Nathan, who was like Corpse Grinder to me as like a movie star. Like, he takes the stage and he's got it. He's got the it factor, so he's like a movie star to me. And I think, okay, that attitude is something I want to pull from, not his personality, because I didn't know his personality. I only knew what he brought to the stage and what he brought to the music. So there's that. And then the rest of the band is kind of sculpted out based on the amount of members. So what you were asking earlier, does it start with the guitar? In this case, it did. It started with a concept and then it moves immediately to guitar, trying to discern what Dethklok was going to sound like. And so in kind of trying to discover who they are, I'm noticing that I'm really interested personally in twin guitar solos and harmonies, from like Iron Maiden, from the world of Maiden to even Brian May from Queen, which I'm very influenced by. And I wanted to figure out how he built these gorgeous, voice-led groupings that are so powerful from me being in the theater when I was a kid watching Flash Gordon to now. So something happened that day that I just still can't shake, and I'm still echoing it in this movie. So all that stuff happens first, and I'm realizing, okay, this is the drummer, and then bass player. Let's talk about bass. When I grew up and I was getting into metal, like my first records were Injustice for All, and you can't hear the bass. What does that do to a person? So what is it if your instrument, if it seems like you can't be heard in the band, I think you're going to try to make up for it in your personality. And that's kind of what, and that's kind of like, that's the idea. So we kind of sculpted out Murderface as this kind of naysaying person who's kind of trying to make up for the fact that he doesn't think he has a voice in this world. He doesn't think he has, he matters, and therefore he makes up for it. Those people that feel small act big. I remember reading that inside of like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, the book. And I was just thinking that's a thing. That's a good thing to kind of put on Murderface. So he's going to be this kind of tragic character throughout this piece. And we have to kind of figure him out and realize that what he really is and what he brings to this project. So that conversation started in episode 1. All these conversations started back then. Who Squiscar is, who Toki is, how they have this kind of brotherhood. They're brothers too. That's another thing. Is it's masculinity and it's how we behave. They're a bunch of roommates. They travel with each other. That's what bands are, And it's kind of hard to get to know each other past a certain place. So how do you need each other musically? How do you need each other as a band? All that stuff. All those conversations are happening while I'm sitting there with a guitar, saying 2 guitars. But what does this mean really?
So you like pulling your hair out doing this stuff?
No, in fact, it's really like if I'm at my best creatively, I'm just listening to the unconscious kind of like start twirling around, and I go, oh yeah, that and that. So I ask a bunch of questions and go to sleep, and hopefully the more I try to throw a saddle on creativity, the more I kind of go ask a lot of questions and take it easy and let the answers start coming as you go on a walk.
Okay. So it's been like 10 or 11 years since you released something. What was the reason to be so heavy? Was it a natural progression between, I'm going to say, Nathan and you? Like, why is this record so much heavier? Did you consciously think about it, or did it just come out that way?
It came out that way.
The times.
I think naturally it was happening. Like I said, this record, it's been 10 years. I don't think if Dethklok came out with something that sounded like old Dethklok, I don't know. I mean, I think whatever it is, there's the same DNA, it just keeps mutating from record 1 to record 2. It sounds different. From record 2 to record 3, it sounds different. Then we did a rock opera, and that sounds different. Then I put out records in between those, and those sound different. So something happens where it's like, if we're coming back, we're going to come back and punch everyone in the gut with the first track, with aortic desecration, and that's part of it. But this record is also not just aggression and not just brutality. There's a side that's mystical and a little bit more expansive and melodic. So the first side is aggressive. The first side is like a fist punching. The other side is like a hand kind of opened up to something bigger and more mystical. So that's what it is. And that's kind of the nature of the movie too. So those themes kind of end up getting leaked from the movie into the record at the same time. And again, I can't do anything to stop it. There was a point where I was listening to this record and I go, I could try to put the brakes on this and make it kind of less heavy, but I don't think I can. I think the Dethklok has to take over and they have to say what they have to say. And it's really being deep in character and deep in world. And that's what these records have always been, is a combination of comedy delivered very straight, very deadpan and aggressively, versus epic and big, like Going to the Water or, Black Fire Upon Us. Like those, I know those songs end up sticking with fans too. So, and they stick with me. And the question is, how do you kind of not do the exact same thing, push the ball forward? And at the same time, it's a Viking funeral for the project. So go out big,
Greetings from Evergreen Podcasts. We're rolling out a listener survey and we want to hear from you. The information in the survey will help us gather statistics and in turn make our shows more appealing to advertisers. I know most people don't like ads, but this is one of the only ways our shows make money and help keep their lights on. We promise it will only take a few minutes, but the impact on our podcasts will be tremendous. As a token of our appreciation, we'll randomly select one lucky participant each month to win an exclusive merchandise package from Evergreen Podcasts. Head to evergreenpodcast.com/listenersurvey to help a show and possibly get some free stuff for doing so. We can't thank you enough for the support. Now back to the show.
Were you surprised, and by no means am I knocking any of it, but were you surprised there was going to be that much interest in Dethklok this so much later down the road?
I guess I'm always surprised if anybody's ever interested in anything that I take part in. Seriously, because it's not a foregone conclusion, especially in modern media where streaming world. I have friends that make shows and they spend years on them and they get dropped off. It's almost like just dumping it into the ocean. No one sees it, It just kind of goes far away, and you'd have to be a private detective to find some of these shows,
right.
So the fact that anybody knows this stuff, but it also was still kind of pre-streaming. It's still kind of legacy TV. So, but when you're making a show like this, you're asking yourself, how do I keep an audience interested? How do I get inside of their head? Because it's almost like going on a date, if you go on a first date with someone you like, you want them to think about you a little bit before the next date. So how can we get something left in your head to make you think about us until the next week when we meet up?
Right.
And how do you just leave one little thing that kind of sticks inside of your brain, scrolling around in there somewhere in your dream or something like that? How do you make that happen? So that's kind of what we're hoping for. The fact that it resonates and sticks around is a wonderful luxury, but that's because fans are spreading the word. This is an audience that doesn't get spoken to.
You're right. And it's funny, I'm listening to you talk, and it seems like you're part psychologist as well as writer, musician, and everything else, because you're trying to figure out how to do what you just said, keep it in their heads.
Keep it in your heads. Well, there's a lot of psychology that goes into being a performer, to being a stand-up comedian. How do you if an audience is not paying attention to comedians, how do you, and then it's your turn to go on stage and everyone's fighting with the audience. You see these shows sometimes. I've gone and participated in them, and then you're standing back going, how do I change the tone of this room? What's happening here? Why is this combative? And how can you subvert that? And how can you start talking like we're all here to laugh and have fun, And sometimes that works, and sometimes you get lost in the treachery of it too. But there is a lot of psychology, I think, in writing and building characters, all that stuff. Again, Murderface is built off of a psychological notion that if you feel worthless, you act as if you have more power than you do, So that idea and just observing people and, friends or people I went to school with or whatever. That's how a lot of these people, that's how these voices were kind of sculpted out through bits and pieces of personalities or myself that I don't like, that kind of get put together in some place.
What's it going to be like hitting the road again? I know you've done a couple one-offs here and there, but hitting the road again for a real run, especially in this summer heat, what's that going to be like, and how are you preparing for that?
Yeah, good question. With the heat, I don't know. Maybe I'll just put a bed on stage and pass out in front of it. But no, doing a one-off, I think, is treacherous. And we've done a couple of those, and they're scary because you get one shot, and you want to get it right, and you want to give the audience the best show that you possibly can, and you want it, and this is kind of a luxury going on tour because you have an opportunity every single night to get it right. And with this group of musicians that I'm playing with, you feel pretty safe. You feel like you're in a good place to step out and to really kind of get up there and do it, And so I'm looking forward to it. I just wish I were on the road already. I've got a couple of days of preparation.
Yeah.
I know that we're going to get in and start rehearsing, and it's just, I like this whole crew a lot. And again, consider this. Here, I've been working for 3 years on all the stuff that's coming out next week. It's going to be nice to get out of the house. It's going to be nice to get off of the Zoom calls and go and participate in the world, the dance of life. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And you mentioned the great musicians. I know we've had Nilly was just on the show a couple of weeks ago. I know she's excited to be playing on this tour as well. But I mean, and of course you got Gene Hoglan. You've got the talent on this show. It's unbelievable talent.
Oh yeah. I mean, the one thing that I've kind of consistently done is hung out with people that are smarter than me and played with people that are better than me and written with people that know more than me and, collaborate with people that are creatively more exciting than me and all that stuff. So that's what I try to do, is just keep a high bar around me so that it elevates my work.
And they're some of the nicest people I've ever met. I've talked to Gene many times. What a nice guy.
He's a super nice guy. Gene is he's a really well-rounded musical entity, from being just one of the great players to being thoughtful with what he loves in music. So he and I will have conversations. He introduces me to cool music. And then we have a lot of different places where we get excited about the same kind of oddity that's way off the beaten path from heavy metal and stuff that gets us, this music is so personal and so exciting. And when you link up with someone who has some kind of similar ideological takes on it, it's really exciting. And then to be able to collaborate and to, stroke our chins and kind of stand back at a song, go, yes, no, yes, let's try something here. Okay, you got an idea? Let's hear it. So that's always what I'm saying to everyone that I collaborate with is it's kind of my job to bring an idea to the table, and it's everybody else's job to beat it with something cooler. Collaborate with me. Jump into the water and hang out, and let's see how far we can take some of this stuff. And
nice.
Yeah.
So lastly, cool. Then I told Annie I would keep it just to 20 minutes or so. What is a Dethklok audience going to look like now, right? Because you're a decade out. It's going to be multi-generational, right? With kids, people like myself bringing their kids to shows.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's funny. The last few ones that I saw, it was a pretty young crowd, and maybe they stayed the same age, and I got older. But it really felt like that, and I hope to see because I go out and see heavy metal shows all the time, and I think the age range is pretty vast. Iron Maiden, people bring their kids.
Oh yeah,
and sometimes there's 3 generations, of Iron Maiden fans out there. So I think it's going to be. I don't know what to expect. The shows that I've done recently have been fairly young, and I think it's because people just keep on passing the stuff.
And I think that's the beauty about this genre of music, right? It kind of it's a rite of passage, and it gets passed down through generations for sure.
Absolutely, and that's one of the important things about heavy metal, and that's kind of a role that Metalocalypse has taken, which is to kind of get people interested in it too. So I'm doing a lot of these interviews, and I'm finding some of these kids are 22, 25 were 6 years old or something when the show came out, and they watched it, and it haunted their nightmares, and they had to figure it out and sort it out. And then they have long hair and tattoos now, and they're now heavy metal people where no one in their family listened to heavy metal. I only know about heavy metal because my friend down the street said, come over to my house after school. You want to see something cool? They showed me Slayer. And
Slayer was the first record?
It wasn't the first one, but it was like everything. Metallica. It was,
Right.
it was like Injustice for All was happening. Them was happening. Rust in Peace was happening. All those cool
Right.
records. So many monumental heavy metal records were happening as I was kind of getting my eyes open to metal. And again, the guitar was happening too. So
Right.
Yngwie, Satriani, Steve Vai, Steve Morse, Marty Friedman, all the people, John Petrucci, everyone that's
Yeah.
kind of doing something on guitar. I'm listening to them.
I'm a little bit older than you, I think. So my gateway was, I remember clearly going into the record store and seeing Diary of a Madman on the shelf and be like, what the
Oh
heck is
yeah.
this? And I picked it
Oh,
up. I had
yeah.
no idea who it was. And those first notes of Over the Mountain
Yeah,
started the trajectory of, here we are.
exactly. You entered the darkness and you never looked back.
Right. And you just keep looking for more. And it's insane.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's the thing. But had I not met my friend, I don't know where I'd be. I don't know what I'd be doing. I don't know if I would have, like, whatever it is in my head. I don't know how I would have been. I don't know what I would have done, So I'm thankful for my friend who I'm still very good friends with, who we still talk about guitar on the phone, once a month. But I'm really grateful, and I think it's really nice to have that because it's not in the mainstream. You have to go hunt it down, or you have to have it shown to you. So that's kind of the exciting thing to see that this long out that people have somehow.
Yeah.
It's taken it's taken force and influenced people's lives. But you and I know that music can do that stuff. Music's
Oh, yeah.
an important mood enhancer.
Yeah. I mean, it's everything for sure. Brendon, thank you so much for your contributions to the metal world. It's
You got it, man. Thank you.
I
Yeah.
appreciate everything.
Thanks for taking my interest, man.
Yeah, no worries. Hopefully I'll catch you on tour. I think I'm gonna try and get over to the Blue Ridge.
Oh yeah, okay.
That's about an hour and a half from me. So I'm gonna probably head over there and maybe catch you guys.
It's gonna be a fun show. I think it's gonna be worth the drive.
Yeah.
We'll make sure it is.
Excellent. Be safe on the road. Thank you for everything and be well.
Thank you, man.
Cheers, my friend. Bye. Bye.
Hello out there.
Yes, hello out there, everyone. I'm Hal Schwartz.
And I'm Flynn McLean. Together we host None But the Brave, a podcast dedicated to the music and career of Bruce Springsteen.
Bruce and E Street Band are on tour right now for the first time in 6 years, and we're taking a detailed look at what's happening on stage in our bi-weekly episodes.
We've also been recently joined by some very exciting guests, including rock journalist Warren Zanes and Stephen Hayden, Backstreet's Magazine founder Charles Cross, and Barstool's Kirk Minahan.
If you're a diehard Springsteen fan, this is the show for you.
So please subscribe to None But the Brave on your favorite podcasting platform, and we hope to see you further on up the road.
Thank you so much. We'll be seeing you.